wanted to take a few minutes to share some honest thoughts and feedback in a response to a message I received about my upcoming training, Holy Ghosted. I did have a strong emotional reaction, but not because I used to be religious. It was because the feedback felt personal. It felt like a professional attack on my judgment as a therapist, and that really caught me off guard. Even as someone who was once deeply immersed in faith, I honestly struggled to understand how the term Holy Ghosted could be seen as offensive. Back when I was religious, I created a parody play called Called to Murder. It was a satire of Called to Serve. And in it, the Relief Society president kills the bishop because he won't release her from her calling. I mean, it wasn't mockery. So when I received this message, it hit hard. And the original message said, "Hi there, I just wanted to say that your title, Holy Ghosted, seems a little outside the bounds of the CMHC Code of Ethics and could be seen as disrespectful to those who practice within that faith. In the CMHC Code of Ethics, section C.1.p, it states that CMHC should make an effort to avoid using language that may be offensive to some individuals. Just so you're aware, we received a flyer for this training in our mail at our office, and this title and word choice was indeed very offensive to some individuals in our office. Just something to consider. Also, is this training evidence-based? Would you mind sharing some of your research and findings that the training is based on? Thanks." That message brought up a lot for me. It didn't feel like curiosity. It felt like correction. It made me feel like I was being accused of doing something unethical, and I take that incredibly seriously. Bringing up the ethics code didn't land as a concern about client harm. It felt like a microaggression, a quiet assertion of control and disapproval dressed in professional language. That kind of messaging isn't new. It echoes religious spaces I, and many of my clients, have experienced where things are phrased nicely but still meant to silence. Later on, I got a message from the same individual. "You're still working through your religious trauma. So when someone posts a comment and you're triggered, that's countertransference. You traded your clinician hat for a client hat." I've been having dialogue back and forth with this clinician, and it's been very helpful, hopefully for both of us. However, I realized that in my video that I made about the intent, I had assumed also that it was countertransference. And so when this clinician said to me, "You're still working through your spiritual trauma, so when someone posts a comment and you're triggered, that's countertransference," and then insinuated I traded my clinician hat for a client hat. In that moment, I realized this wasn't countertransference. Countertransference is what happens in sessions with clients. This wasn't that. This was a professional conversation. Reacting to a colleague's comments that question my ethics is a human response, not a failure of professionalism. And saying I traded hats, it felt dismissive, as if being a clinician with lived experience makes me less credible. But it's the opposite. I mean, I've done and continue to do the work around my own spiritual trauma. It's because of that work I'm able to show up with clarity, intention, and care. This whole situation brought up an old memory. A couple of years ago, I created some posters for a religious trauma process group that I was running at another practice. But then I was asked to take them down, just in case LDS clients might see them and decide not to return. So when this clinician suggested that this training might be better for clients than clinicians, that same wound opened, because often people don't want to confront how systems they value might have caused harm. And let's talk about the evidence-based question. When it comes right after being told the title offended people and might be unethical, it doesn't feel like curiosity. It feels like an insinuation. But this training is grounded in research, clinical experience, and ethical care. Supporting clients through religious trauma is absolutely a valid, evidence-supported focus of mental health work. If the message had said something like, "I saw the flyer for your training titled Holy Ghosted and was intrigued by the concept. It's definitely a hot button title. I was curious. Could you share a bit more about what inspired the name and the focus of the training?" I could have received that with openness. But as it was, emojis, ethics code, no personal ownership of the concerns, it felt like a subtle shaming, not dialogue. So just to be clear, I wasn't upset because I'm not religious anymore. I was upset because it felt like my ethics and judgment were being quietly questioned, and that hurt. If the clarifications and good intentions that came later had been in the original message, I honestly don't think I would have been triggered. Maybe I was naive to think that all therapists, regardless of belief, would see the value in addressing religious trauma with care and courage. But I'm still here, and I'm willing to have this conversation. Thanks for listening.